Hello, this is PG, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Star Wars Outlaws for the Xbox Series X. The game is also available on PC and PlayStation. Star Wars Outlaws is an action-adventure game developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft. The game focuses on Kay, an outlaw who has to assemble a team for a massive heist. So what is the game like to play? Well, it's a third-person shooter set across a variety of worlds. These worlds, they're pretty small in terms of scale. You've got a limited regional map to explore, but you can also fly into space and get into dogfights or board space stations. Speaking of the combat, it's pretty basic stuff. You've got a blaster, you can punch enemies, you can crouch, dodge roll, or you can get your AI buddy to help you out.
Take him down, Nix.
Kay has a bullet time skill that lets you pick off a few targets with ease, and you can also pick up enemy blasters, but they only last for a short time. Speaking of blasters, you can upgrade and customize this over a period of time. You can add new features like a charging ability or the ability to explode objects, which in turn will access new areas. But I would say stealth is probably the most prominent part of the game, more so than combat, and stealth, it is a forgiving mistress in Star Wars Outlaws. The enemies don't even seem to have a pair of eyeballs, or if they do, their peripheral vision is shot. It makes progress simple, but also, despite being simple, I would say that these sort of infiltration missions that are led by stealth, they were some of the best parts of the game.
A heads up, they're performing a drill in 1 hour.
Your AI companion can also help by distracting enemies, attacking them to give you the upper hand, or can also be used to fetch items that are out of your reach. In terms of character progression, you can unlock new abilities over time. These are learnt from characters in the game once you meet certain conditions. It's not like you choose what to unlock, it auto unlocks things once you've done the necessary requirement. As well as customizing your blaster, you can do this to your speeder and the spacecraft, but I'd say there is a real lack of character customization here, and even a character creator, with the latter being a massive misstep that I think really would have helped people engage with the main character and the main story. Now, being an outlaw means you work for different crime syndicates. The more missions you do, the better your relationship becomes with each syndicate. And this in turn will give you new opportunities, gear and gifts. But on the flip side, help out one syndicate too much and another one will start to hate you for it, so it becomes a kind of a balancing act between what choices you make and what you need to do, which faction do you need on your side for the current mission. But I would say this is not an RPG, this is very much straight down the line action adventure. There's no real branching conversations. And this really does add, it doesn't add any depth, it adds a lack of depth to the story, because it all just feels a bit on rails and quite tedious.
And Crimson Dawn is making moves. Yeah, sure. No problem.
The game features a variety of game worlds to explore, including Tatooine and a few other nice examples. I can't say that they're a great collection though, and they do feel a bit like copy and paste. You go to one, it's got a town, there's lots of open space, there's some random buildings, oh here's a raid, here's a camp, blah blah blah. It really doesn't have any depth, really doesn't make you feel like you're in a different place. Now, while on these worlds you can use a speeder like I said, you can look for treasure, you can get into skirmishes, fetch quests, blah blah blah, but narrative is one of the worst parts of this game. It's very underwhelming in terms of story. I don't think Kay is a terrible character, but I don't think she's really given the chance to succeed by the lackluster writing, and there's no real character development or emotional depth. Also, it just throws you into this character's life with no real context as to why would you care? Who is this character? What's the point? I think that's a big problem. Adding to that is the ensemble cast of immediately forgettable characters, which also affects one key aspect of the game: choices. The game says it's all about choice: who you work for, who you double cross, who you kill, blah blah blah. But when all the characters are so uninteresting and paper thin, each choice you make really doesn't make any difference at all because you're not invested. I would also reference Mass Effect 2 here, because in that game, for example, you cared because the characters were so well written and so well fleshed out. It made you really worry or be concerned about what happened to them. Here, honestly, I couldn't have given a toss about any of them. Oh, this one dies. Boo-hoo. Next. And that's the problem. If you don't care about the journey and the characters are not engaging, then what is keeping you there other than just the day-to-day sort of mechanical gameplay, so to speak? I'd also say the villain is absolutely pathetic, but again, that really kind of gives you the flavour of the overall standard of the characters in the game. So not great, but one part of this game that I think really did succeed were the side activities and mainly the mini games. You've got gambling on races, you've got illegal card games, which I quite enjoyed. Arcade machines, even a nice little sort of dinner segment where you and your little fluffy friend chow down on some tasty morsels.
Nice one.
Visually, it's okay. It's not going to blow anybody away, and frankly, it's quite a disappointing visual experience when you compare it to something like Jedi Survivor, for example. I also experienced some crashes, which in modern times I have to say is quite remarkable, especially from a AAA game. There were pop-in textures, and overall it just looks quite flat. The sound, I'd say it's got good sound effects, the music is nice. I'd say the voice acting was okay, even though the writing, doesn't really help the actors out, does it? Let's be honest. Anyway, verdict: Star Wars Outlaws is a disappointing, lackluster and forgettable action-adventure game that fails to deliver on almost every front. Yes, some of the combat is fun, some of the heist missions were quite interesting, and the mini games around the world I thought were probably the standout moments. But with a cast of characters as bad as I've seen in years, a story that frankly has no real interesting core, and a lot of missions that all felt the same, you're left with, a pretty average game on the whole. If you're a Star Wars fan from back in the day, you might enjoy a couple of bits here and there. Like I enjoyed the gunfights, I enjoyed the mini games, bombing around on a speeder was okay, but like all the core story stuff was dull. Some of the infiltration heists were nice when you're going into like Imperial bases. It brought back memories of the original trilogy, but I can't recommend the game because it's just quite disappointing. Maybe wait for the sales, wait for the bargain bucket, but even if you get it on the cheap, I think you're going to grow tired of this probably within 3 or 4 days. Okay, scoring, I would give Star Wars Outlaws, I'd give it 6 out of 10, which might sound generous, but I did enjoy some of the infiltrations, some of the combat, some of the mini games, so that there is something here. But if I give a game 7 or above, I'm recommending it, so I've given it a 6, so that kind of tells you everything you need to know. Anyway, this is PG signing off. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. I'm off to have a coffee. Cheers.